child's dad was, and she pointed to the violator. And so I asked her then, because I knew she was a missing person, I asked her if I could check her out. And I generally will keep gloves in my pocket for different things, bloody wreck scenes. If somebody's got some kind of communicable disease, I'll put gloves on. I don't want to get it. But I asked her, hey, do you mind if I check you out real quick? And I'll get into it a little bit later too, but I saw on her head, she had some makeup on a spot, looked to be like where she was hit in the head recently, and she had some bruising around her neck. And so I first just pull up her sleeves, and I see, it's hard to show here, but I see a distinct thumbprint right here on this arm from where someone had grabbed her because the thumb went this direction. And then I open this one up and I see another thumbprint. So somebody grabbed her hard enough from the front and drug her to leave marks on her wrist, along with her neck. So I see all this, and now I've got enough to prove what I'm thinking. And I asked her, I said, who did this to you? And she couldn't say because he was raising a fit, but she did her head like this and just started crying. I said, well, are there marks on other parts of your body that I can't see right now? And she just started bawling. She said, yes, sir. I said, okay, we're going to handle this. So got in touch with social services, got some other people in play to get her somewhere safe, took him to jail, ended up getting a search warrant for a laptop and a laptop and a cell phone, because today's time, everything is on a phone. Someone's life is on their phone. And so if I get that phone, I can get a lot of evidence that I'm going to need to prove this. So after a little bit of time, I get enough evidence to show that he had been doing sexual things with this young lady and others and selling her on different websites that we looked for. And I was up until this point because it was out-of-state fugitive warrants. I merely just took him into custody so that Delaware could come serve those warrants on him, come get him. But now I have human trafficking and a lot of other things on him, exploitation of a child, all these things that we're going to talk about. Well, that case ended up, the FBI sent 2 dudes down from Delaware on a plane to North Carolina and said, we want your whole packet. Like, this is going big. And they took him to court within 30 days, and he's in prison for like 45 years for this. This was a part of a human trafficking ring. Just from that one particular stop, we ended up finding 8 other victims. The front passenger, the other black female that she's claimed was her sister, then her cousin, then her friend, that was a co-trafficker. We'll talk more about that too, but essentially with these trafficking rings, you'll have a group of people that make money on it, and they may not really even do the dirty work, but they'll have somebody else do it. And they will be the ones in charge of recruiting young girls that are kind of disassociated with their families, maybe living on the street, having some problems, and they'll recruit them into this ring, and that's how they continue to grow. But that was her role to play in it. But there was, just out of that one, there were 2 traffickers, a co-trafficker, and 8 victims. And they were taking these girls all across the country. They had been as far west as Iowa, and they were constantly going up and down the East Coast. Did some more digging on some websites, and her picture was posted everywhere. And we'll touch on it again, but basically what will happen is that these traffickers can make up to $250,000 a year off of one girl. And so this young man, he was like, I think he was about 26 years old. He had multiple homes, multiple cars, nice cars that I'll never be able to afford, Mercedes and BMW. And he had 8 girls out here that he was pimping out, $250,000 a piece. So that's how I got to be here. I've been through some other training on forensic interviews and interviewing some of the suspects. And I just went through a week-long course back last summer in Maryland that's given from really the world's leader in the interviews of these sexual predators. And so I've watched a bunch of those interviews, and so their mindset is generally the same. And we'll talk more about that too. But okay, we can go to the next slide. So first, we'll start out with just the North Carolina definition of human trafficking. And it kind of varies a little bit from the federal definition. A person commits the offense of human trafficking when that person knowingly or reckless disregard of the consequences of the action recruits, entices, harbors, transports, provides, patronizes, solicits, or obtains by any means another person with the intent that the other person will be held in involuntary servitude or sexual servitude, or willfully, in reckless disregard of the consequences of the action, causes a minor to be held in involuntary servitude or sexual servitude. So part of that is the age of the victim, and then the other part is basically anybody that partakes in this, someone against their will. And in the federal statute, click the next arrow a couple of times for me, please. Force, fraud, or coercion is a three-pronged element in the federal statute. You don't have to have that. And on the previous slide, our state statutes, I don't know if you caught it, they just started this in 2006. That's when we got our very first human trafficking statute for the state. So this is still relatively new for us, but we've added to it a lot, and we keep revising it. About every 2 to 3 years, it looks like our legislature goes back and they'll add some more teeth to it to help us. Here's some examples of force, fraud, or coercion. I think pretty well everyone understands force. Just making someone physical and mental abuse is for sure the top one. That's how they control these children and even adults. They get in their minds, they scare them, and along with the coercion, what makes our job hard is that the victims are brainwashed into thinking that they deserve this or they've done something to cause it, and then they're ashamed to let anyone know, and then the trafficker will make them afraid of law enforcement, especially if they're from another country, which is pretty common. If they're from Mexico or a third world country and they're here to work or whatever they're here for illegally, they'll make them afraid of law enforcement. So these people are not coming to us for help. And then some of them feel like they've brought it on themselves, or that's just how it is. If they start out at an early age, that's all they've really known. And so a lot of them don't know that it's wrong. That's just their life. But burning, kidnapping, starvation, drugs, that's a big one. If they're not already on drugs when they find these girls and young boys, they will quickly start drugging them. And it may start out as alcohol. And through my journey with this, I've met several survivors, and they've told me the same thing. They said that they didn't mind getting drugged or drinking and staying drunk because it helped knock the edge off and numb them from the pain that they're experiencing. So that's a big one. Confinement, rape, and restraint. This is the worst of the criminal world, for sure. That's why I have a passion for it. These individuals are unique. The victims are unique and the perpetrators are unique. But this is as bad as it gets, in my opinion. And this is a very dark subject. But like we were talking earlier, if we can't even talk about it and it bothers us and it's very uncomfortable, imagine what it's like going through it. And believe it or not, and I'll prove it to you in just a few minutes, there's children all around us living this nightmare every day. And so at some point we have to thicken our skin a little bit and use some of these words, because if the words bother you, imagine what it's like as a child dealing with that. And a lot of them will take their own lives eventually. But this is very dark subject matter. And in this presentation that I've made, I've taken a lot of that really bad stuff out. But still, I think driving the point home, and I think just by y'all being here, I know that y'all care enough about it to learn more. And I'm going to hopefully give you some tools, and if you can remember some things that we go over. A lot of these tips that come in are from people just like y'all. They're, hey, my neighbor's I'm seeing some weird things at my neighbor's house. Can you just come check it out? And then somebody like us will roll up, check it out, and then we'll have that moment like, aha, this is human trafficking. We need to get a search warrant. And there's rescues. All of this stuff that I put in this PowerPoint is really recent, relevant, and local. So you may know more about some of these cases than I do. And a lot of these cases, like for example mine, you won't find it anywhere public. I think the FBI still has it under investigation because I want to put some pictures of it when, I was taking the guy down with the rifle. It looks cool, So, but I don't think I can put those in there yet because it's still ongoing. But a lot of these cases are public, and you can fact check me all day long on this. And I even put some of the websites below so you can go on it as we're talking. I don't mind at all. So fraud, this is a big one. This is just false promises. This may begin as a romantic relationship or what a victim believes to be a romantic relationship. And over time, it may start out as, well, I need you to do a favor for me. I need you to sleep with this guy. I owe him some money or something like that. And then it gets to be an everyday thing, multiple people. Well, and then, once we get enough money, we're going to get out of this situation. We're going to have a house. We're going to get married. They promise them the dream. And I went to a symposium where the victim was saying all of those things. She got into a relationship with the guy that she met online, and everything was great in the beginning. It seemed like he had a good job. He was spending lots of money. I need you to do me a favor, and I know you're not going to like it, but if you love me, you'll do it for me. And so then they start making those bonds between the love and the emotional attachment to now all of a sudden it's making him money. And it just grows from there. Coercion, this is like we talked about where they threaten them. They threaten to call the law if they're illegal, get them deported, things like that. A big one too is some of these traffickers will target single moms with children. They're extra vulnerable. That's a commonality in these perpetrators. They look for the vulnerable. And, we walk among the wicked. There's wicked people all around us, and they hide within our ranks. And this especially is hard to pick them out. But this one thing, they target vulnerable people. That's a common thing. And so they might look for single young mothers with children, and then they'll threaten to harm the child if the mother doesn't do X, Y, Z for them. Well, if you don't do this, I know where your kid's at. So you may never see your child again. And so they love their child, so they do what they're told. And then threatening to call the police. All right. Let's see, do we have that top link pulled up? I was wanting to show y'all the very beginning of the federal statutes for this. It started in the year 2000. The Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000. There we go. This was the beginning of some laws, and the states followed the federal government after this, and almost verbatim for the laws. But if y'all was more interested, you could go on this website and check that out. But basically, it provides a visa. There's a visa program in place for undocumented people that are in this country that are victimized certain offenses, but sexual offenses for sure. They and their next of kin are granted a visa, so that way if we can keep the victims here, we can prosecute the person. But if someone's from Mexico, undocumented, they get sexually assaulted in this country and they leave with no victim, there's no case, and so it'll get dropped. So the purpose behind that, and there's not many of them, but the purpose behind it is if someone is in our country for whatever reason and they're victimized by this sort of crime, we can keep that person here legally so that we can prosecute that guy. And that's in place. But they put money into protection, prevention, and prosecution. So the federal government grants some states money to do training programs It's not enough, I'll tell you that, and a lot of the money gets scammed away. And a lot of the real work comes from churches like y'all's, finding people in the community that are actually doing this work, private entities mostly, and raising money for them, or if you have some way to provide shelter or protection for the victims. That's pretty much how we get stuff done in this state. We can go back to the original page, and it has a few statutes that have been added recently. The top one is kind of interesting. You'll see this later in a case from Currituck County, but sexual exploitation of a minor, obscene visual representation of sexual exploitation of a minor, and this now includes AI-generated images. So if you have Facebook and you have your grandchildren or your child's pictures on there, these people are taking pictures of your child, their face, and they're using AI and they're adding it to a naked child, and now all of a sudden they have pornographic material with your child's face on it, and you didn't even know it. And they can sell that, they can push that out to all their buddies, because these people are sophisticated. They have websites for this stuff on the dark web and otherwise. And that's what happened to the guy in Currituck. That's what he was doing. But now the law covers that. So even if it's not an actual picture of your child or grandchild naked, they can still charge it because they've taken images that were real and added them. And furthermore, even if it's not a real child but it looks like a child, it's a felony. All of it's felony, Class C felony. So we have the common indecent liberties with children, solicitation of a child by electronic device. That covers any electronic devices, phones, computers, anything. And these people, although they're sophisticated, law enforcement's catching up quick. We have units called ICAC units, the Internet Crimes Against Children, and they're basically scanning, and they have AI helping, but they're scanning to see who's making this, who's selling it, who's buying it. Because as you saw earlier, it don't matter if you're making it, if you're fabricating it, if you're buying it, if you're moving it, transport it, whatever, you're still involved with it. But we're catching up. And let's see, I put this one in here, taking indecent liberties with a student. The government holds people in trustworthy positions at a different esteem than they do regular people. They say, okay, well, you're a teacher, you're a law enforcement officer, we're supposed to trust you more than the regular person. So there's stiffer punishments for that. And there should be. Because like we were talking about, that predatory mindset that these people have, that's so interesting to me, this is how they think. They want to earn the adult's trust first, because it's easy to earn a child's trust. Children are very influenceable. It's easy. That's not the problem. You have to earn the parent's trust first, and then once the parent trusts you, the child will be easy. You can make the child do whatever you want. So that predatory mindset, they end up in our schools and places of trust. A lot of times you'll see, a lot of times they're soccer coaches. I hate to say it, but a lot of them will try to get into like a youth pastor program to where they have a lot of contact with children. They want those positions of trust because as normal people, we trust certain people more than others just because. You know, if you see somebody in a uniform, most people are like, hey, that's a trustworthy person. You know, he is, but not all of them are. But that's how they think. And so that's what's kind of fascinating about these folks to me. Even though they're a predator, they will cower. And at the first bit of pressure, especially from men, these people will back down. It's unusual. They can beat women, they can beat children, they can do all these things, and even boys, I mean, they're not excluded. But as soon as you treat them like a man, they back down. They will cower. I don't know why that is, but it's something in their psyche, and it's interesting. All right, the Sex Offenders Registry Program. Back in 2019, it was ruled that satellite monitoring of sexual predators was unconstitutional for, there was a lifetime, if you committed a certain offense, all of a sudden, they had to wear an ankle monitor so that way the government could track them to make sure they're not within 1,000 feet of schools, daycares, anywhere where children would congregate, even churches. That was ruled unconstitutional. So now we don't have that, unfortunately. And our legislators thought it was smart to go in and say, okay, well, after 10 years, now it's incumbent on the government, the law enforcement agency that put them on the registry, after 10 years, must tell them that they're able to come off of the registry. They must let them know that they can petition to come off. So now instead of having these people on a registry like we like, because it's public record, there's applications you can pull on your phone. And these, keep in mind, these are only the people that are compliant with those rules. These are only the people that will update their address when they move, and they won't use their grandmother's or their aunt's address while they live next to a school. At least with that, we can see where the compliant people are, if they're in the area that our children are in, and that helps us, and we feel comfort in that. But now that's not really a thing anymore. The only way that the maximum that they can have is 30 years on the registry, and the only way is to have multiple violent sexual offenses. So the world's not as safe as what we think, so that's why it's important for parents to take this into their own hands a little bit and really pay attention to your children and your neighbors' children and stuff like that. Look out for one another, because the world's changing. And even though we have those capabilities to track somebody real time with the satellite, they've ruled it unconstitutional. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Here's a few updates lately that has given us a little bit more teeth. One, consent is not a defense to solicitation of a child. So the primary means that a lot of these predators are getting our children, and even young ladies, is on the internet. And Pam Strickland is over the NC Stop Human Trafficking Coalition out of Greenville, and she said something to the effect of, we all want our children to be connected to the world. Like, we want them to learn, we want them to be up to date with technology, but the world is on the other side too, and we don't know who they're coming in contact with, and that's so true. Start them off at an early age, but now, even if the child says, no, it's okay, I know I'm 15, but it's okay, I want to be with you, that's not a defense. A new requirement for hotels and rental property staff to receive anti-human trafficking training. That's good, that helps. And they also have to post the human trafficking hotline number and information, which helps. And we shouldn't have to have it, but we do. Prohibition on viewing pornography on government devices and networks. So even people within our own government are guilty of this same thing, and we had to make a law to cover that, which is kind of sad. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so what does it look like? This was the most important thing to me. What am I looking for? And I'm not sure, I was asking earlier if y'all had like a daycare program here and stuff like that, but I think y'all have something like homeschool once a week. So the biggest thing is just get in tune with the child. If you're a parent or a grandparent, you should have a pretty good understanding on how children behave, how they respond to questions, and just pay attention to them. But disconnection out, there could be some really bad trauma going on at home. Behavioral changes from mental abuse, fear, anxiety, confused, disoriented, those sorts of things. Like we talked about earlier, there are certain parts of the body that a child shouldn't have bruises in. Around the face, I get it. Like, I have to play. The normal bruises on the shin and the knees and stuff like that, that's just normal. But if they've got some serious marks around their neck, especially young children, or around their wrist or in their pelvic area, that should set off some kind of senses going off, like, that's not normal. nobody should be pushing that hard on a child's belly to cause a bruise there. And why would they, hold their neck so tight to leave a bruise? If you see that, definitely take note of it. If you can take pictures, and we'll get into it a little bit more later too, but any information you can pass on to us, if you can get a name of the child. And the thing is a lot of people won't come to us because they're scared, but they'll come to y'all because y'all are just regular folks. You got to ask a few questions. Hey, what happened? Can you tell me what happened here? And a lot of kids will tell you, but if their answer's kind of weird, then you know it's rehearsed. Then you know somebody's told them, hey, if somebody ever asks, this is what you're going to tell them happened to you. You're not going to tell them that this happened. You're going to lie. So just getting involved in asking a few questions casually, but genuine questions. Another thing, bruises in the different stages of healing. What we mean by that is if I grab you here today, that's going to start a bruise. If I grab you there tomorrow, it's going to start another bruise. You're going to see different colors. They're going to be light and dark. They'll be yellow and green and purple. That means that that's an everyday thing, or that's a repetitive thing that's happening to you. So bruises in the different stages of healing just tell us that this is not an isolated incident. This is something that this child or this woman or this boy is going through regularly. And so that helps us tie some of the pieces together. All right. Poor hygiene is an indication of poor living conditions. And that could be just because parents don't have money, or that could be something else. Just something to think about. Display of fear, submission, becoming timid, or rehearsed answers like we talked about. If you said, hey, buddy, and with children, a lot of times you want to get down on their level and talk to them face to face. And that way you're not towering over them and intimidating them. Another thing is, like we was talking about earlier, in your neighborhood, just look around where you live. And if somebody's got children, they should have things for children to play with, like swing sets and toys, and there should be kid trash in places. If they've got a bunch of children and there's none of that there, that's kind of odd. We had another case down in Cumberland County, I think it was like that. There was a really high fence around the backyard, and children were coming and going, but there was no swing set, there was no toys, there was nothing. And when the officers went and looked inside the house, there was no furniture in the house. It was empty. But these people were coming and going. And these drug traffickers, gun runners, and the human traffickers, they have a lot of money, an absorbent amount of money. And they had enough money to buy this house, and that's where they were sending the people to and the children to, this house. So nobody lived there, but the children were getting abused there over and over again. And it was a neighbor that called and said, hey, this is odd. There's a really high fence. You can't see anything around the back, and there's people coming and going, but it don't look like nobody lives there. And so that was just somebody being observant, and it led to busting a whole ring. And that was a thing, the unreasonable security measures with the high fence and then restricted movement. They had that there, so it made it harder for the neighbors to see what was actually happening. Okay, so this is a problem, but why is it a problem here? Interestingly enough, North Carolina has the second most miles of any state in the country, only behind Texas. Almost 81,000 miles of roadway in this state alone. And with that, as you can see, if you could take it, it would wrap around the world 3 times. With that, these people can move these people in, whether they're adults or children. They can move them in, feed the demand, and then they can get them out. And so it's really hard for law enforcement. They're transient. Even if we wanted to set up a ping or something on their phone, they're already in another state and we don't have jurisdiction anymore. Now I've got to pass that on to another state, and it's just in and out quick. We have lots of international airports. We have several sports teams, military bases, and the more people you have, the more demand for this you're going to have, which raises the supply. They're going to bring them in. And it's not just a big city problem, as we'll see in just a little bit. This affects the entire. Our ag industry, we're number 8 in the nation for agriculture in this state. Over 41,000 farms, 8 million plus acres, economic impact of 110 billion, and these were the most recent numbers I could find. Well, with that, we have a lot of migrant workers in, so there's a language barrier, there's a geographical barrier. They don't know where the heck they're at. All they know is this one farm that they have to work. They can't speak the language, they have no money, they don't have ways to get around, so they rely 100% on the farmers for everything. And with that comes that power and control in. They say, well, a lot of times what will happen is they'll go to Mexico, they'll promise them, okay, when you get here, we're going to pay you $15 an hour. That's really good money. It would be in Mexico. That's way more than they would make in their home country. When they get here, well, they also promise them, I've got housing, I can feed you, and then once a week, I can take you to town and you can send money wherever you want. You can buy clothes, you can buy whatever you want, and it sounds great. Well, when they get here, the house that they're staying in with 20 other people has no power or running water. And when they get there, there's a man that'll tell them, well, we have to provide these services, so you're staying in our house, so we've got to dock your check a little bit each week from that. And so that's where this debt bondage comes in. They're always in the hole. From the moment they get there, they owe this person already. And that's hard to prove, but once again, we're getting better at that. But that's something that is prevalent in large agricultural states, and we're not exempt from it. It's happened here. Domestic servitude, which is like someone cleaning homes, hotels, hospitality, that hotel, motel, and illicit massage parlors are the top 3 in this state for as far as SBI investigations of human trafficking. But you have factories, organized panhandlers and begging rings, sports events, military bases. Pretty much anybody could take part in this, and that's what makes it hard, because the people that's pictures you're about to see, they look like us. They look like any ordinary person, so it's kind of difficult. Okay, here's some numbers. With human trafficking, just like drug trafficking, how in the world are we supposed to know how many pounds of drugs are coming in and out of the country? It's an illegal trade, or guns. The government's not really tracking that. So these numbers are not 100% accurate, but this is based off of cases that were reported in North Carolina, and some of the numbers are from 2024, and then I think there's some from another 2022. So we're always, and you can do your own research later if you want, but we're always in the top 10 in the country for human trafficking. And right now we're sitting at number 9. We had 301 cases. A lot of them, like we were saying, were residence-based commercial sex. A lot of that's from applications, illicit massage parlors and hotel, motel. And if you can see, domestic work is the highest for venues, and then sex trafficking outweighs labor trafficking by a whole lot. And then the majority of the cases reported, this is just reported, are adult females. So that's the majority of the numbers that we're seeing right here. But we know that children are also involved. 150 billion estimated profits, and that comes from a U.S. Department of State missing person or trafficking in persons report, and second to drug trafficking. And the average age of a child being entered into this realm is 11 to 14 years old. It's kind of hard to swallow, but 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be victimized. That's a big number, really, because there's somebody in this room that's probably been victimized before, and you may not know it. And that's a sad reality of it. Go to the next one. And the next slide, I put this on here just food for thought. This was from NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. I pulled the numbers a couple nights ago to see how many missing children we still had active in this state. There's 81, and we're doing a pretty good job of finding them, because a lot of them are simply runaways, And these are American children. This is not accounting for undocumented children. But we have 81 still in this state, and that's pretty high. There's some great big states like New Mexico had probably a quarter of that. And they're right there on the border, and it just don't sound right. But we have 81 missing children. And with that, I was thinking, if my child was missing, I would want everybody looking for them, because law enforcement's not able to do that. Even if we both looked all day today, we've still got stuff that we got to do tomorrow and the next. We can't spend every day and night looking for them, which we try to. But the more we can get this word out, the easier to make it to recover those children. But some of them won't be found because they're pulled into this life. The criminals love these undocumented children, because if you can get them at 3 or 4 years old where they don't even know their own name yet, they don't know what city they live in or their parents' name, if you can get them at that age, you can brainwash them into whatever you want them to think. And so there's a high demand for them. Okay. We'll introduce you to a few people here. There's a video at the top. This Joseph Rosamondo. I'll tell you about this guy. He lived in High Point, and he met a young girl online, and 14 years old. He went to Pennsylvania, abducted her, brought her back to High Point, lived in a real nice neighborhood, real nice house, and he kept her sexually assaulting her for a year before a neighbor made that phone call and said, I think there's a young girl that lives in this house, but I never see her leave, and she probably should be in school. It's really weird, but y'all should come check it out. So they come check it out, and now he's got 30 felonies pending. If you are able to, we can play that video. I just put a few links in here. All this is open source information too, so y'all can go online and check it out for yourself too. But this is just a newscast from that gentleman.
Thank you. Developing tonight, a year-long kidnapping case stretching over several states. A High Point man will face the judge tomorrow after a 15-year-old girl who was reported missing in Pennsylvania almost a year ago was found alive inside his home.
Police have identified that man as 32-year-old Joseph Rosamondo. He now faces more than a dozen charges, including trafficking and kidnapping. Let's go to Kara Peters tonight. You spoke to the suspect's neighbors. What did they have to say?
Devontae, Christine, yes, I spoke to a lot of people in this neighborhood today, and not one of them told me that they knew Rosamando well or really spoke with him much. And as you can imagine, they are in disbelief that something like this happened in their quiet neighborhood.
It's pretty shocking to know that a neighbor is doing that type of stuff. It's crazy.
Residents of a High Point neighborhood are feeling unsettled after officers arrested 32-year-old Joseph Rosamando at his home on Trayburn Lane Monday afternoon.
It's shocking, it's disturbing. Again, it just makes you want to know more about what's going on around you.
According to High Point police, they went to the home after receiving information that a young girl might be living there. Court documents show the 15-year-old girl is from Reading, Pennsylvania, and was listed as missing or a runaway last June. Officers found both the girl and the suspect at the home and spoke with her. Police say officers also executed a search warrant at the home where they found child sexual abuse material inside and seized several electronic devices. Neighbors we spoke with say although they never saw the two together, they're now on high alert.
I never see him or know him.
It makes you want to get to know your neighbors a little better, just to protect each other and to be on the lookout for stuff like that.
Surveillance cameras are mounted on the house, and a car was parked in Rosamando's driveway Tuesday afternoon. But when we knocked on the door, no one answered. Rosamando now faces 20 charges, including sex offense with a child, rape of a child, trafficking, and kidnapping.
So if something doesn't feel right in your neighborhood, ask some friendly questions, and see what those responses are.
Cindy King is the executive director of Abolition NC, a Greensboro-based nonprofit that brings awareness to human trafficking. She says if you see unusual behavior or suspicious activity, report it. And that home where Rosamando and the young girl were found is right behind me here. You can see it lit up, and there's still a lot of questions at this hour. We don't know the condition location of the girl or where she is right now. And according to court records, Rosmando does not have any previous criminal offenses. He is currently being held in the Guilford County Jail under no bond. We are live tonight in High Point. I'm Kara Peters for WXII 12 News.
Imagine being able to build an
Okay.
app with your name.
That was one example. And if I'm not mistaken, that was from last year. And whenever we go back to that slide, yeah, so that was from last September. All this stuff is fresh for you guys. Last September. Does anyone recognize the two in the middle on the right? You recognize those faces? Yeah? So those two guys, same thing. They met a young girl online. She was from Harnett County. This was last summer here. From Harnett County. They go up to Virginia Beach, or no, Norfolk. They go to Norfolk. They kidnap her, throw her in a car, and they drive back to Kitty Hawk. Y'all remember that? They found her in Kitty Hawk, just a little bit of ways down from our office. The guy on the bottom, that's a 2018 case, but I actually know him. He's a piece of crap. I was in the Army with him, and I never liked him, but I guess I know why now. He lived in Charlotte, and when I was in the military, this cat would roll up in a really nice car, like a Mercedes, and I'm like, dude, what do you do for a living? And he would say, oh, I'm in construction. I'm like, I've never seen a construction worker driving a Mercedes. That's odd. But very arrogant, type A personality. Went to Afghanistan and came back, and it wasn't long after that. He got busted for human trafficking. He had 6 women that he'd found. He was just going out, finding girls, or maybe even online, finding them that were addicted to some kind of drugs. And then he was going and getting those drugs. He would say, well, I've got your supply, but you got to go do this for me. And so he had a really sophisticated trafficking ring. And even his 7-year-old daughter, he got caught taking her to people in Virginia and South Carolina for them to sexually assault his own daughter. But he's put away for like 45 years. He deserves more. But I knew him. That's why I put that up there. Xavier Boston, if you want to look him up. And if y'all want this PowerPoint, I'll be happy to give it to you. If you want to go behind and look at some of this stuff closer, you're welcome to. Check this out. This is from this week from Washington County. You saw that? Okay. So this girl was abducted in Los Angeles in her home in 2000. And her parents had basically given up. They didn't know where she was. She was found in Washington County schools just this week. But she was rescued. And I don't know, just from this missing persons report, I don't know what all happened to this young girl, but she had a fake name and all that stuff. Like we was talking about, if you get them early enough, you can tell them, your name is this. This is your name. All you got to do is eventually you'll think you're ugly. If I tell you your name is XYZ, eventually you're going to think XYZ because you're not going to spend the extra effort to try to remember your original identity. But that's what happened to her. She was brainwashed when she was 5, told a different name, told a different family, different background, and she's in Washington County. So they found her. I thought that was really cool. That was from the 11th. What day was the 11th? Yeah. So just a few days ago. Okay, next slide. All right, here's a couple more examples. The top one's from 2023, but I put this in here to represent, kind of describe some of the force that these traffickers will use on their victims. This guy, he was 60-something years old, Chester Wallace out of Durham. He had 6 to 7 women that he was trafficking, and at one point, well actually at a couple points, this is why he got so many life sentences, they would try to get away and he would beat them almost to death. He'd almost kill them. And there was a man, just a regular person, trying to help one of the trying to kill him. Didn't kill him, but he was just a good Samaritan trying to help these girls get away from the situation. But he got 6 life terms in prison for that. and he's ordered to pay like $1 million in restitution, which they'll never get. But that was 2023. This one was also from a couple of weeks ago in Wake County. This is a Wake County assistant principal and a teacher in Rollsville High School or middle school. But he was taking pictures of his students, pornographic pictures of them, and disseminating them, and his wife was helping him. This was just a couple of weeks ago too. That's still fresh. So this is all everywhere. Here's another one from New Hanover County. I included it because it's a fraud example and it's close by. But these 6 guys right here, the one on the top left, I don't remember his name, Todd Evans, Christopher Todd Evans. He's the ringleader of this, but you have these 6 men who organized a so-called escort business, entertainment business down in Wilmington, and they were prostituting out 150 girls and making bukus of money. And the fraud part came in because they told all the girls, if you do this, we will pay to have you go to college. We'll pay for your schooling. All you got to do is just a few months of this and we'll pay for everything. And so they're like, okay. So there's promises behind it. Even though it's bad enough what they had to do, these guys promised them the world and they were taking all the money. And so the girls never left because they 100% relied on these men for everything. And the men were just making a bunch of money off of it. Okay, here's another one. This is from yesterday. You know about this one? Yeah? Okay, so this is a friendly neighbor in Currituck County who got busted yesterday for taking images of minors and disseminating them as well. And I'm sure there's more to come, but this joker got a $6 million bond and he's still sitting up there. I thought about going and interviewing him before I come today. Say, hey man, tell me a little bit about this. He probably would. But yeah, it's close, y'all. That's from March 13th. Today's the 14th. It don't get no closer than that. I think that's all of the cases that I have right here, but y'all can get your phone out and you can just search human trafficking in North Carolina and it will fill up with these cases. And that's just the public ones. There's plenty like mine that ain't public that are still ongoing, or they're so bad that they don't want to put those details out there. Not only because it's repulsive, but they want to protect the identities of the children and stuff like that. So really the worst of the worst aren't public, but a bunch of them are. Okay. There's a few videos here. Can we play that human trafficking in North Carolina trailer? This lady, Melissa Elliott, she's a friend of mine as well. I met her on this journey. You'll see her first. She's a light-skinned black woman. I'll just let her talk for a second here.
That's one reason why I want to tell my story, because I want people to know that, it could be people that you trust and they can kind of garner that relationship with you, and you're thinking it's one thing and it might end up being something totally different.
You know, the best explanation I've heard about what human trafficking is from Dr. Lauren Bethel, is that it is an exploitation of vulnerability. Labor exploitation helps us to better understand how to investigate and prosecute sex trafficking.
Que la gente es para trabajar, no es para que abusen de ellos, para que no los traten mal, que la gente sea libre, que no sea esclavizada, porque nosotros inmigrantes venimos a trabajar duro, pero no nos gusta que los traten mal. Eso nomás quiero decirle a las personas que contratan gente, que tengan un poco de compasión con nosotros.
God, I didn't come out of this unscathed. I didn't come out of this perfectly whole, not like a child who was raised in a loving, righteous family.
We have seen potential traffickers who have been in professional settings that have been doctors and lawyers. We have seen situations with significant red flags for trafficking, where they were the patriarchs of the town, and it was a rural town where this person's family goes back generations.
Okay, so Melissa Elliott, when she was about 12 years old, got into a argument. I got argumentative with her mama. There was no father in her life. Remember how we talked about a lot of these predators will cower at strong men? Well, this is a common thing. But Melissa Elliott's dad wasn't in her life, and she grew up in Henderson, which is kind of a crap hole, but hey, it's all right. I love it. Anyhow, when she was like 12-ish, got into an argument with her mom and didn't want to be around her home, so she went to stay with a family friend. She's like, I don't want to be at home, just stay with you. Longer story short, the family friend ended up grooming her to be a prostitute at age like 12. Took her out of school and took her to Texas, and the mom filed a missing persons report. Had no idea where she went to, but you can read this in a book. I have it in the car. I meant to bring it in. Trauma to Triumph is the name of her book. But anyhow, they take her to Texas, and they're down there close to the Mexican border, and those little border towns that have a lot of good Mexican restaurants and that sort of thing. And she was supposed to stay in the restaurant, and if somebody came in and said a certain word, that was their cue to go get her, bring Melissa out, or bring this guy in. And so there was a back room in the restaurant where she was being sexually abused, and she said that the first sign was that her friend, who she basically considered family, was putting makeup on her and dressing her up real pretty. And she said she felt like she was really beautiful, but she didn't know what was happening. Well, after a while, they introduced the alcohol, said drink this, and so she was drinking tequila at age 12 to get drunk whenever these guys were coming in that restaurant and making their way with her. And she lived that life for about 7 or 8 months. Luckily, it was short. But she was at the house, and somebody had called in a tip, and they sent a deputy or a police officer out there. She was chained up. She had literally handcuffs with a chain to the floor in the next room over, where she couldn't get to the window. She thought about screaming for help, but she knew that if she did, she would be severely beaten. In her mind, she didn't think that she would actually get the help. But the officer was standing in the doorway and had a picture of her whenever she was, a child from Henderson, had said, "Have you seen this young girl?" And the girl, it was a female that was trafficking her. And the girl said, "No, I haven't. Last time I saw her was in North Carolina. But what's happened? Is something wrong?" And just played this whole story. And the officer never came in, never searched the house, and she was in the next room over. She felt defeated. She said that she thought she was going to die because she was that close to getting help. And she didn't scream and holler because she'd been beaten so many times that it was already ingrained in her mind that she couldn't do that. She was so controlled. But she watches the officer leaves, and she just bawls crying. She said, "That was my chance right there, and now they're never going to find me." Well, a little time later, the trafficker was taking Melissa somewhere, and they had a traffic stop. Everything gets into a car. That's why the North Carolina Highway Patrol is involved with this, because everything you can imagine gets into a vehicle and moves on our roads. But they initiated a traffic stop. Officer says, "Hey, young lady, what's your name?" And she says, "I'm Melissa Elliott. Please take me home," and just starts bawling. And they took her, checked her, found out she was missing person, and brought her back to North Carolina. And she ended up going to Vance Granville Community College. She got all her schooling finished up, and she is now the mayor of Henderson. Yeah, she's a sweet woman. But she wants to tell her story. And I don't know how she gets through it without crying, but actually, she wants to tell her story to remind people that it's not always a stranger that will abduct your child. It's somebody that they know. It's somebody that you know, more than likely. And she's told me many times that she forgives the people that did those things to her, and she felt like they needed the Lord and they needed something more. And although it happened to her, she forgives them, and that's just powerful. But she put this in her book. It's 1 Peter 5:8. Beginning of chapter 2 of her book, she says, "Be sober, be vigilant, Because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. And it's true. They are among us. There's a couple more videos here that we'll play, and then we'll be about finished up. So if y'all need to take a nap or whatever, you'll be able to.
Where news comes first. You're watching WECT News.
January marks Human Trafficking Prevention Month.
It's one of the fastest growing crimes in the country and one of the most pressing issues here in North Carolina. WECT's J.C. Caldwell talked with leaders of nonprofit groups who actually help the victims. And J.C., they say it's a problem right here in Wilmington, too.
Yeah, that's right, John. Officials with 514 Revolution say Wilmington has always been a hotspot for human trafficking, but they're seeing a rising number of calls and are warning what to watch out for. We've given you the stories. Arrest after arrest on human trafficking charges made right here in southeastern North Carolina. But you still may not realize the problem is only getting worse.
Human trafficking is one of the biggest money makers in the world. You can sell drugs one time, you can sell a person as many times a day as you can.
Hardin Reeves is the assistant director at 514 Revolution.
Have you done that?
It's a local nonprofit fighting against human trafficking and helping victims with resources like housing, money, even legal support.
Trafficking is defined by force, fraud, or coercion. If you have exchanged any sort of sexual favors or any sort of favors for something of value to you, that could be drugs, that could be a place to stay. Human trafficking happens everywhere.
We're not immune. North Carolina consistently ranks among the top 10 U.S. states for reported human trafficking cases.
We have received 565 calls on our hotline. That's the most it's ever been.
Believe it or not, Wilmington is sadly breaking records of its own, hitting 126 calls in 2025. But why here?
Because of the port and because we're a vacation town.
It's also close to major interstates. It's not exactly what you may think, though.
People think it's a lot of, they get kidnapped in the middle of the night and thrown into a shipping container, and I mean, that could happen, but we find that there isn't really one pathway.
It could start by getting in the wrong relationship or getting involved in the wrong job with no way out. And there are signs to look out for.
If you see a woman or an individual who is kind of constantly being watched, if they have certain markings, if they can't make direct eye contact, people will often not have control of their ID, they won't have a phone.
If you do see something, officials plead, say something.
We have had several instances where people were walking through the mall and they saw something that didn't seem quite right. So they would call. 9 times out of 10, it's something.
When it is, we'll continue to bring you the story.
It's the new kind of pandemic.
If you are a victim or know someone who might be, you can contact 514 Revolution for help. We have their contact information on our website. J.C. Caldwell, WECT News.
That was just from 2 or 3 months ago.
Human trafficking is real in North Carolina. We have to do our part to fight it. We need to learn about it and understand that it doesn't always look the way that we think it does. It's happening all around us, in our banks, in our grocery stores, in our neighborhoods. Today, we're going to dispel some common myths about human trafficking.
Under North Carolina law, human trafficking is minors involved in any commercial sexual activity, adults induced into commercial sexual activity through force, fraud, or coercion, children and adults induced to perform labor or services through force, fraud, or coercion.
Human trafficking is the forced coercion of individuals to engage in forced labor, sex trafficking, or other services like farming, domestic servitude, that sort of thing. And it is more prevalent in North Carolina than most people realize. And in fact, for a number of years, North Carolina has been in the top 10 in the country for human trafficking cases.
There are many ways that traffickers can control their victims beyond the use of physical force. There is the emotional manipulation, there's the isolation, there is also the confiscating passports, withholding money, and restricting their ability to travel freely.
Typically, traffickers are really, really good, unfortunately, at identifying victims who are vulnerable. That can be someone who is homeless, who has been the previous victim of abuse, who is suffering from some sort of substance abuse.
These individuals are very, very talented at getting inside individuals' heads and telling them who they are and what they want in a way that those victims believe that they have met their best friend, they've met their love for life, they're going to be married, and they're going to be taken care of. And these individuals have only one goal, and that is for that victim to make money for that trafficker.
Many people believe that only women or girls can be victims of trafficking. This is not true. Traffickers can be your family, your romantic partner, your boss, your friends.
There are people that we know, people that we trust, because oftentimes human traffickers exploit vulnerabilities, emotional vulnerabilities. It tends to be someone that the victim knows.
Trafficking impacts every gender, every race. Trafficking does not discriminate.
Victims often do not ask for help. They feel ashamed, they feel frightened, they feel trapped, they feel like they are stuck in their situation, and some of them even feel like somehow they've been convinced that they've brought their situation on themselves, when in fact they have not, hence they're victims.
In many cases, the victims may think they're in love with the trafficker. In many cases, they admire the trafficker. And in many cases, they've been in this organization so long that it's all they know. It's how they're given material things, food, clothing, whatever they may need. So they'll be very reluctant to provide information about the trafficker. They'll be very reluctant to admit they're in danger and reluctant to seek help.
The North Carolina Human Trafficking Commission was created by law in 2013 as the statewide organization to combat this problem in North Carolina.
Well, the commission works to really be that clearinghouse between all of the different disciplines that are necessary to have an effective response to trafficking in North Carolina. So both the law enforcement response, but also the service provider response, and really trying to elevate the idea of multidisciplinary response, because you really do need a variety of expertise to respond effectively to human trafficking in North Carolina.
Sex trafficking, labor trafficking, all forms of human trafficking are happening right here in our neighborhoods in North Carolina. It's happening in your backyard. It's happening around your workspace. We should all be on this.
If you think that you see human trafficking, the most important thing you can do is call the National Human Trafficking Hotline, or you can text Be Free. There's someone here to help.
I have that number in another slide if you need it. I saw you start writing it down. But yeah, so they're echoing the same thing. If it don't look right, something's probably not right. And really all you got to do is call this number that we've got up here. You can call 911 for sure, do that. Get as much description as you can about the situation so that we know what we're coming into. But any of those numbers up there, you can call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. You can call them as well. If you can take a picture, this is really cool technology that we have. If you could take a picture of that child, you can send it to them, and they can run that through a database. And even if it's a picture from the side or not a square picture from the front, they can tell us in just 30 seconds, yep, that's their real name, they're missing from Texas, get them. We had an operation last summer on I-40 where all the human trafficking instructors got out there, criminal interdiction units was out there, and we were just trying to find kids. And we was doing that very same thing. In Johnson County, we found some that were missing from Bulgaria or something like that. So the feds even have international pictures from missing children. So it's amazing. But So what are we doing about it? The Highway Patrol is training up all of our troopers in human trafficking. We're pushing out information. We've worked with the SBI to create a form to where if we don't have enough to arrest them, but we know something's not right, we can submit that form, and basically the wizards behind the computers at SBI can start monitoring these people. And even if we don't arrest them that day, but we know something ain't right, the SBI can monitor them and see what they're into. And a lot of times it does lead to a bigger investigation, and they'll get busted like some of these people. All right, and then for one of our last slides, I wanted to leave with a little bit of scripture here. That I was going through a bunch of things last night, trying to figure out what would be appropriate and kind of convey how I feel about it. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ that you are serving. And that's pretty much how I view my job. I don't have the best mouth. So a lot of times I say what I think, and I don't care how it gets out. But at the end of the day, we want to shed light in all these dark corners. And there's only one way to do that, and it's just come out here and look for it. And whenever you find it, try to do something about it. And that's just kind of where I'm at with it, and that's where troopers are at with it. And we're the biggest state agency, is why we're tasked with this. We have about 1,500 to 1,600 troopers on the highways day and night. And so if there's anybody that's got a chance in the world at finding these kids and interdicting it, it's going to be us. We're getting more technology here really soon that'll help us even more. We have a team. I'm fortunate to be a part of it, but we have a team that's scattered all throughout the state. An Amber Alert, they send it to us, and we got people that analysts that will go ahead and start looking at cameras all across the state for tags and pinging cell phones, and we are right on the heels of these people. So as soon as they take your child or your grandchild, we're on them. And we've caught a bunch. We caught one girl who they abducted out of Harnett County. I don't know why Harnett's so hot, but abducted out of Harnett County. We got her in Wisconsin and brought her back before anything bad happened to her. So it's out of state too. We're on them. So we're getting better. We're improving our tactics to catching them and identifying them. But it's going to be ongoing. And then I wanted to leave the last slide with some of our contact information. If you want further, then you're welcome to. That's my little boy there on the left. His name is Fox. But I think being a good parent is going to solve a lot of this. We got plenty of bad parents in the world. And that's why some of these criminals take advantage of those opportunities. But if you just listen to your children, talk to them, ask them how their day was, just be in tune with their little lives, then that's the best way you can protect them from falling into this trap. But you never know. I tell people in our class, because we're preaching to law enforcement officers in our class, and we're teaching them the indicators and things, and a lot of them are forced to be there. Their agency sends them. They're not really interested in it. But I tell them, look, use this in your personal life first. Even if you don't feel like you're going to use it in your professional world, use it in your personal life. Because if you've got a baby mom or a baby dad, and then all of a sudden they start dating a sketchy person, that's still your child's a victim of it. But you need to know the indicators to see what to pick up on. Know how to talk to your kids, get in tune with them. I tell them it's very important. If you don't believe me, if you don't think it'll work, use it in your personal life. I run off one of my baby mama's boyfriends. I was like, that dude right there is a threat to children. And she's like, no. I'm like, yeah, I'm telling you, this, and this. I don't like him. And it's not because he's with you. There's something about that guy. He's transient. He picks up jobs where he can go from state to state to state. Nobody really tracks him. He made a lot of money, but now all of a sudden he's a mechanic in another county. There's a lot of stuff going on there, and I said, I don't want my son around him. He wanted my son to sleep in the same bed. He was 4 or 5 years old at the time. I'm like, that's my son. He don't need to be sleeping with another man. But a lot of weird stuff. But I tell them, hey, even if you don't feel like you're ever going to use it at work, if you're in an office job or whatever, you might be at the grocery store and see something crazy like this. Because these people are pretty bold. We stopped a car, and remember we was talking about kid trash? So wherever kids go, they kind of leave a mess. Well, you expect that. If you're a parent, you know what kid trash is, little Cheetos, wrappers, toys, and all that stuff. And it's all in the car too. Well, stopped the car, there was no kid trash in it. The child was not in a car seat. There was a male driving, and then there was a little boy in the back seat, about as far away from the male as he could get, on the passenger side rear. Wasn't in a car seat, just seat belted in. The car was immaculate, nothing in it. And then whenever we popped the trunk, there was a backpack, and it was kids stuff all tucked away, like extra change of clothes, whatever was in it. And it was just really odd. And the guy and the child were not related. We get to looking, and basically we caught them right in the middle of an exchange. So basically it was a quick in and out. The deal was they were going to pull up at a gas station. Here's the child, here's the backpack, go. Thank you for $5,000, I'll see him back in a week. 1 week for $5,000. And so that's how quick it happens. But you could be at that gas station and see that. You could see something at a grocery store or whatever. You don't have to be law enforcement. You just gotta kind of be aware that it's a problem. But that's about all I have, without really getting into the weeds in it. Does anybody have any questions for me? Yes, ma'am.
Do you have, yes, thank you. Do you have any success with the arresting and prosecuting the customers, the clients of these individuals?
Yes, ma'am. So she's asking, do the customers and clients also get arrested and prosecuted? Absolutely. Years ago, the thinking was prostitution. Years ago, law enforcement was going out and doing these stings, and they were arresting all of the girls walking the strip. Every little area has a strip, in a big city. And they were arresting them all for prostitution. And so you're getting these women who had a whole lot of charges for prostitution. And they weren't going after the trafficker, and they weren't going after the people that were buying them. Well, now it's changing. Now they're not hard on prosecuting for prostitution. It's still a charge if they're over 18 or whatever, but what they were finding was a lot of them are underage. They're lying about their names and their birth dates. Some of them may already have criminal records under that alias, and so they appear that they're of age, but they're really not. And a lot of times the drugs that they are forced to take will age them faster too. Now the mindset is away from arresting and prosecuting the prostitutes, because a lot of them aren't there because they want to be. They were coerced into doing it. Now it's, how do we discreetly talk to that prostitute undercover to where it doesn't throw any red flags to her trafficker, because he's watching her. And he could be listening. He's tracking her on a phone. They all have phones. They're tracking them, because if I buy her, then she has to tell me she has to tell the trafficker when I bought her, how much I paid, and she has to keep track of her day. So how many people bought her that day. And so he's expecting a certain amount of money. And he's got her location, so she can't run away. But a lot of times they have ways to listen to the conversations, because they will beat her if she says, you can't have me for 75. The deal is 95. And he's like, okay, well, her trafficker is listening to her, and he could beat her, for losing money. So the problem is, how do we discreetly talk to her and make it appear like we're getting ready to buy her without throwing any red flags to him, and maybe slide her a number, or say, hey, remember this number. Text "be free" to this number whenever you get a chance. And then just walk away. I'm sorry, I can't afford that. You are beautiful. And it's something like that. So we have to get smart with how we're interdicting them. We're getting there. But a lot of that stuff is undercover. Sheriff's offices doing that sort of thing. But it's a really finicky line to walk. But now we're going after, especially with all the online stuff, the state's slick. They'll set up these websites, and it attracts all these predators, but the state set it up, and they're tracking their IP addresses. They're seeing who's coming, where they're coming from. And as soon as they get there, we're waiting for XYZ to meet the elements of the crime, swoop in, hook them up, take them to jail. And a lot of times it's clear cut. Like the pictures will be of a girl, and she'll say, well, I'm only 13. And a lot of these guys they don't care. They're like, okay, that's great. That's what I'm looking for. And then they'll say something to the effect of, well, would you mind bringing me a Happy Meal? Like a chicken nugget Happy Meal with an orange drink? And dude will walk in the hotel with a Happy Meal and an orange drink. And she'll tell him a room as soon as he walks in, and they do the exchange. They swoop in and get him. So they're not focused so much on the victims anymore as far as prosecuting. We need their help, but they're going after the traffickers, the big key players. Because in the grand scheme of things, it's about money. It's a money racket. And so they're trying to pull down the ones making all the money, but it's just like cutting the head off of a snake and another one pops up. It's going to be a thing. People have been forced to do things they don't want to since the beginning of time. And then you attach a bunch of money to it. It's so lucrative that it's worth their risk to take. So, but luckily for us, it's changing.
Isn't it true that normal people like us who are not criminally minded, when we see trafficking going on, we excuse it is for the first couple of times anyway?
Mm-hmm.
That's true, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. So she's asking, is it true that regular people may not recognize trafficking or make an excuse that it's something different? Absolutely. Law enforcement officers do the same thing. Even after going through the training, there's no way this is what this is. Or I don't know enough about how to handle it to get involved with it, so I'm just going to, that's not my baby. So.
Because I know that this still haunts me, because I saw it twice and excused it away, but it was a tow truck driver that picked up girls in trouble, that broke down, and then he picked them up, and then he took them to his house because they couldn't afford a motel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's how he got paid.
Well, yes, and then of course he had a place to stash their car.
Yeah.
That's it. So you can't trust, and yeah, that still haunts me that I've seen it a couple of times, and yeah.
It's tricky because victims, I'm going to get to you in 1 second. Victims won't cry out for help, but we still have to articulate and prove all the elements of the crime to be able to make an arrest. And these guys are pretty slick. They know what they can and can't say, and we have to do all of the legwork. It's very hard for me to get your phone. That's almost the same protections as your house for me to get your phone. I have to have a lot of evidence to be able to get into your phone and get the information off of it. And it's hard to build that case in just a short amount of time on the road. Luckily, they're not the brightest. Some of them are pretty slick, but they're not the brightest. So they will leave loose ends, and we can pick up on it, and we can get that search warrant, and then we can really get the evidence that we're looking for. But it's tough because the victims won't cry for help, and the perpetrators, the girls are just a way for them to make money. So what? We take one of their girls or we rescue one of their girls. They're going to get somebody else in her seat, and she's going to be making money for them the next night. So they don't care about the girls. They care about them enough to make sure that they're wanted, that they're desired from the Johns, the purchasers. But as far as like their actual well-being, they don't care. But it's tough. I would just say with guidance, if you feel strongly about it, what's it going to hurt to let somebody know? You can call 911, and I'll be honest, not all law enforcement officers have that training and the experience and really knows what they're looking at. But it wouldn't hurt. Call 911. Take a good description of what you saw. I saw a tow truck picking up 2 young girls that were scantily dressed in clothing that wasn't really appropriate, and left, and that's kind of unusual. Call 911, and then you can call that hotline, the human trafficking hotline, and just let them know what you got. Because there's other resources, like we said, that the SBI has that will start monitoring all of the electronic information in that area. So it'll help. It won't hurt nothing. It don't hurt my feelings. Every time a trooper sends me something, hey, sir, I think I've got something weird. I'm like, okay, let's go for it. Had a really weird situation happen here last summer with a girl from Mongolia. And I felt like there was some human trafficking influence there for sure. And then before you know it, everybody disappears. I'm just like, oh. But it's here because this is a touristy place, so it's here. So she asked who's responsible for getting the victim's psychological help. So there's governmental agencies and private agencies that will provide the mental health assessments and all of that stuff behind the scenes. So once we get the victims in secure custody and get them away from that trafficker and that situation, we will forward them to what's called a child advocacy center, or Department of Social Services has access. There's loads of mental. You know, they say the average woman, it takes, what is it, like 11 times, I think, for the average woman. You know, us going to the house, hey, she's leaving, we're taking her somewhere safe, and then they end up going right back. So in domestic situations with abusive relationships, it takes the average woman like 11 times before she actually stays gone. This is really not different. A lot of times, like the video was saying, they have feelings for their traffickers because like the girl that I saved, she would go get her nails done. She had the latest iPhone. She was dressed nicely. Her hair and everything was done. The trafficker paid for that. But that's an investment for him because if I'm selling you, I want you to be pretty. You're going to have your nails done. You're going to have an iPhone, and best believe I'm going to be tracking it, but I'm going to pay for that. And you feel like I actually love you because I'm taking care of some of the things that you need. And so they do have that attachment to them. And so even after we rescue them, a lot of times they will want to go back. It was really no different with my case. We were monitoring jail conversations and all that sort of stuff, and she felt like that was her boyfriend and that we just took him away from her. She still didn't realize that he was using her to make money. And I'm just like, how do you have multiple boyfriends then? If he loves you so much, why is he carrying you all the way from Delaware to Atlanta to see another boyfriend? You know, that's how brainwashed they get. But there's a lot of mental help that has to go in on the back end to make sure that once they're away, they stay away. And unfortunately, you know, we don't really get involved in that part of it. But and so we don't really get updates on them after the fact. I'd love to know where, like, the state of mind that the girl that I saved is now, but she's been in protective custody and all of that sort of stuff, so I don't know, but I know there's a lot of mental help on the back end. There's a lot of organizations that are nonprofits that help with that sort of stuff.
Speaking of that, are there some nonprofits in our region? I think there are that's their motive is like human, like I know Brood Rescue in Hertford.
Yes, sir.
Are you aware, like there might be some people here that would like to sew into that or help out?
Yeah.
Are you aware of any?
So I will do some digging on it.
Okay.
I meant to find one local last night. I've dealt with one from Henderson, and I know she's willing to go anywhere in the state, and she is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Her name is Kara Gill. She owns Sam Child Advocacy Center, but she will not turn anybody away. In fact, I can look that up before I leave and get that to you, not just for her, but a local one, because we have a program, CJ Leads, and we can look up statewide child advocacy centers, and not just for children, but for other victims, and I'll look that up for you. But she operates, you can call Kara Gill, like she puts her personal number on her website, and I've called her at 1 a.m. I was down here, and I told her, hey, we've got a deputy in Chatham County, or maybe Orange County, whichever one's further away, that needs a forensic interview on this girl. Because basically what we had 2 young girls that were lured out by the internet to meet this guy. He takes them to a hotel room, assaults one, and then another man comes to get the other. They were at the same hotel. Well, there was a sting operation going on, and they ended up intercepting one girl. Well, the other one, they left with her. And so we had to get information. The first officer that was there was kind of abrasive and didn't get a whole bunch of rapport built. And so I called Sarah, and I was like, or Kara Gill, I was like, I need you there to talk to her because we don't have much time to find this second victim. Mm-hmm. And so she left her house in the middle of the night, went all the way down there, did a forensic interview on the first victim and was able to get enough information to where we could find the second one. She's amazing. And I know her personally, and there's resources all across the state, but I'll look up and find the closest one here. And if y'all wanted to work with them, I would vet them first to make sure, because a lot of these companies, unfortunately, they will set up and they'll get that grant money, but they don't actually do anything with it. Just like the Somalian daycares. This is another thing. Yeah. So there's a lot of pretty much shell companies, and they get all this money, but they're not doing any work with it. And so that's why I know Kara Gill works, and she does all her stuff for free. It's at no cost to the family or nothing. And I've talked to her about the money, because I'm like, how can you work for free? How can you have a business and all that stuff for free? And she's like, well, I get federal money, but it's hit and miss. You know, sometimes they'll promise 5,000 or 7,000 or whatever, and we won't get it. And then all of a sudden, 2 months later, it'll come, or it's kind of hit and miss. She said, we just do it because we enjoy it. But that's a whole nother presentation where they actually talk to the children, and they'll have them draw out things, and they talk to them in a way that's not leading. So they're not telling, well, hey, tell me what he did to you. No, they just say, okay, well, tell me what happened. They have a way to talk to children that is very soft, and okay, well, let's draw it. And they get all of this information from children, almost like magic, and they can get all the details to fill in the blanks to help us to prosecute. And she does all of that. I don't know what kind of dreams she has, but it couldn't be good ones with the stuff that she deals with every day.
So what do you guys do with that?
I'm sorry?
Do you get counseling for handling all this stuff?
Well, no, we don't. We could, I guess, but yeah. Well, she asked if we get counseling.
Pretty bad stuff, you know?
Yeah, it's bad, but I think in my life, I've always tried to channel bad things and turn it into motivation to do better. When I was overseas, I was on the night squad, and we did patrols out looking for bombs. And the day squad, we had just come back and went to bed, and got good into sleep, and I heard boom, huge. It sounded like somebody took Connex doors and just slammed them. That's what it sounded like. Well, our other squad was several miles away and got hit by IED, and it killed one, and it put third-degree burns on 3, completely destroyed the truck. It was on fire, burning 500 gallons of diesel, and we had to suit back up and go. Well, most people just fall to pieces when something like that happens, but it's over, it's done. You can't do anything, but you have to go back out the next day and fight. And so I was a truck commander, and I'm not bragging, but this is just explaining kind of the way that I channel things. But I said, well, I'm going to give my gunner a break. So you come down, I'm going to man the gun. Because I'm like, if any stuff, I think I try to learn from my own mistakes that I made, and try to make sure that I don't make them again. And I try to tell the guys, not everybody's enthusiastic about this subject, because it's kind of unsettling. Not everybody really wants to talk about this stuff. But I tell people, man, it don't matter till you're a dad. It don't matter till you're a mom. When you're a parent, then you really start seeing that, man, not everybody treats their kids as good as I do. Some people really treat their kids like crap. And those are the ones that are going to fall into this. And so, man, if that's your job to serve and protect, there's nothing more noble than looking for this right here, to me. And so I try to rub that off as much as possible. I don't know if it works or not, but I try to rub it off as much as possible. So that way it's not just a few of us out here trying to make a difference, but more people are. But you have to be half crazy, I think, to do this job anymore. I'm probably crazy. I don't know. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Smile, man. It's the smile that gives you.
Yeah. But I don't know. I felt like if I ever needed counseling, I would seek it. But the way that I try to turn everything into motivation. There's always some kind of good, even in the bad. And I just try to learn lessons from that. That's just me, but that's a good question. Uh-huh.
Isn't out in Currituck, don't they have the program or organization called Beloved Haven?
I'm not familiar with them.
I think so. Yeah. That's
Is that the one you mentioned?
Yeah, well, they're affiliated with Burrito Rescue out of Currituck and Elizabeth City. I've heard of them. Yeah.
Currituck seems to be squared away. They have that whole ICAC unit, the Internet Crimes Against Children, and they have some very sophisticated equipment and guys trained, maybe gals trained too, to basically go online and monitor the information exchange, and that's how they're finding a lot of these people. That's how they'll find our kids if somebody takes our kids. So thank God for them. Yes, sir.
As a father of an 18-year-old who's out and about, a daughter who's out and about by herself in a car, what are some things that she can look for to, that could catch her eye, that somebody might be watching her and want to snatch her up or something like that? I mean, we got some other young girls here in the room too that probably need to hear this. Like, what do they need to be looking for?
Definitely look people in the eye. That's hard for children and adolescents to do, but looking people in the face whenever you walk in a room, letting them know, hey, I see you. I'm going to remember you. That's enough to deter a lot of these predators. Oh, they're going to recognize me. Or they have that look about them and that confidence that you're not going to do whatever you want to me. I got a daddy. He'll make sure, I think just if you have a daughter or a son, especially for fathers, just be close with them. Make sure that, and this is another thing, don't ever tell your kids to have a secret. You know how some people, because they exploit this, and this was something that I learned I never thought about, but a lot of times when children are small, somebody will say, well, I'm going to give you some candy, but don't tell your mama. This is between us. Okay. When you do that, you teach that child to hold that secret and not tell you, not knowing that these predators are going to do the same thing. Because if they have access to your kids, a lot of it will start off as a game. They try to make it like fun because the kids love games. And so they'll say something like, what kind of underwear are you wearing? Purple. I don't believe you. Show me. And so they'll show them, and it starts there. And it gets into the color game. And next thing you know, they're taking clothes off and stuff like that. And they'll tell them from the beginning, now this stays between us. Don't tell mommy and daddy, because they'll be upset. Or I won't be able to give you any more candy. Or I won't be able to do this. They make it a game. So whenever you start your kids off with that, the predators exploit that. And so I would say as a dad, I don't have any secrets from my son. I tell him, I'm never going to be mad at whatever you got to tell me. I'm going to love you. You can tell me whatever. And so I let him talk. And so I would tell your daughter, no matter how old you are, you can tell me whatever. You can tell me anything. I'm not going to be mad at you. And keep that line of communication, because they will tell you when something's not right. They won't feel ashamed. But I would definitely start there and head on a swivel. And once she's comfortable enough to learn how to shoot, carry a firearm, carry a knife, protect yourself. We can't be everywhere. You got to hold your own until we get there. And I would rather find that perpetrator laying there where I can't help him anymore. Like, well, call the wagon. Did a good job, girl. Don't be a victim.
What about driving? Like, say,
if somebody's following you.
Or getting gas or whatever.
Yeah.
There's certain things probably just for driving that to do or not do.
Yeah. Driving wise, I would definitely head on a swivel. And we do get calls from time to time. I used to work in Wake County before I come out here. Oh, golly. But we would get calls regularly, mostly from young girls, saying, hey, somebody's following me. I'm on the way home, and they're following me. And the first thing we say is, don't go home, because then they know where you live at. Matter of fact, go to a really populated area. And most of the time when they did that, we would try to get them to come back closer to where we were. Like, hey, come to the Walmart on this road. And we would head that way. But by the time they'd get to a highly populated area where there's a lot of people to see, lots of cameras, things like that, they'll turn off. And so that works most of the time. If you're being followed, don't go home. Go somewhere where there's a lot of people, a lot of cameras, a lot of light. Tends to happen at nighttime mostly when they do that. But just head on a swivel, just paying attention. Watch out for this guy. she's liable to write her a ticket. But yeah, I would say just carry a gun. There's nothing wrong with it. We're American.
The other thing to caveat off that, I know, I don't talk loud. All right, just to caveat off that a little bit, just from the videos I've seen and people I've talked to, the cell phone is a huge pain in the rear end for most people. I know I'm glued to mine most of the time when I'm on the job. I won't lie. And I know Kaylin is too. But just get these teenagers off the phone. Because if they're not paying attention, the first thing, if you don't mind holding out your phone or something, or you,
I don't have it.
You're just,
I'm old
if you're on
school.
the phone, what's the first thing I can do? I can just grab this person right here, and I can just take them wherever I want to go.
That's right.
Or the same thing with the kids. Like if you're, I know some of y'all have grandkids or whatnot. You're in the cart, kids behind you. I'm looking down at this stuff. What am I not paying attention to? Exactly. So I can snatch that kid and I can go wherever the heck I want to and sell it. And more than once and twice. I mean, there's lots of things. Just, as you said, pay attention to what your surroundings are. I mean, there's even things out now in the big cities where people put windshield wipers up. I know I'm not paying attention all the time to my windshield wipers, but if I'm going in the car and I see my windshield wipers up, I know I didn't do that unless there's a snowstorm. It doesn't snow very often here in North Carolina. Get out of there. All right, don't get back out of your car. Don't go ahead and fix your stuff. Leave the area, then go to a populated area, like he said, fix your stuff there and make some phone calls. Because there are videos out there, there are people that have literally stepped out of the car to go fix your stuff and they're immediately snatched. All right, so head on the swivel. If something doesn't feel right, get out of the area, make the phone call. It does not hurt us. I know that I don't mind getting called out from writing tickets. I love writing tickets, he knows. But I'd rather do something that's going to make a bigger difference than slowing someone down on the side of the road, or make sure they're not wearing, or make sure they're wearing their seatbelt. But at the end of the day, we collectively need to make a difference. I mean, I know there's only a few of us here, but just a few of us can go ahead and make a huge difference in someone else's life.
I'm glad you brought that up because there's a new tactic that they're using. They're going to like Walmart parking lots. They're watching for people that pull in that have kids, young kids, and they'll put a teddy bear on the cowl on the outside of the car, or they'll sit it down on the outside of the door. And what it does is it draws attention, but it'll distract the parent long enough for them to either take the car or take the child. So if you see something that was not placed on your car, don't fool with it. I would just go away, get away from the area. If you can go to another area of the parking lot, remove it, because you don't know, it could have a tracking device in it too.
Or drugs.
But that was happening in Fayetteville. And then, last week or this week, it might have been this week, there was Lumberton, there was a off-duty trooper who got a phone call, said, hey, so-and-so's vehicle just got stolen right down the road. So he jumps in the car with his shorts and t-shirt on, goes after her, stops it. This knucklehead was watching outside of either their house or something. The parent left the car running, went inside, and come out, the car was gone. 2 babies in the car.
Yeah,
So they were running away with 2 kids.
Actually, I got a little bit more information on that one too.
Go ahead, yeah,
So
but that just happened too.
Yeah, so what ended up happening was the dad, he is military or current military, put the 2 kids in the car, literally ran back inside. The trooper actually lived across the street. This is what I've heard. We just happened to be looking out the window, knows that the female that took the car was not the mother or anybody that was associated with the neighborhood. She left. Luckily, in the small town, as only within the size of this building really, trooper got in the vehicle like you said, ran after the guy in his shorts and t-shirt, and was able to actually stop the lady. As she was leaving that vehicle, she just ended up leaving it there. And I don't know exactly if she was going to the store or gas station or whatnot, but just happened to stop, and just we're very thankful for that to stop whatever she was doing. The kids got back, the father and the kids were reunited, so we're all happy on that end.
Mm-hmm.
A couple things you may not have touched on it, but know who your kids' friends are, and make sure they're afraid of you.
Yeah, that's right.
And their parents, their families. And that helps a lot.
Well, people.
Steep, like you said. And another thing, this signal.
Yes,
is
sir.
that a valid?
That means help me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I'd put that in the notes somewhere, but I'd forgot. If you see somebody just doing like 4 up, 4 down, that means help me.
Okay.
A trooper out west interdicted a car because a little girl was doing that. He stopped it, and sure enough, she was, I think it was a familial thing. So the dad wasn't supposed to have her. He ended up going to the school and picked her up, even though he was on the list that he couldn't do that. He didn't have legal rights or legal custody to do it. He left with her, and she was doing that, and they stopped her. But that's good. But people either fear you or respect you, and I don't care either way, you know. But you're right. It's going to be somebody that, if that ever happens, hopefully it don't, but it would be somebody that you know or that they know. So a friend of theirs or a parent of a friend. So you definitely need to know.
When you're talking about firearms, you know, some people aren't comfortable with firearms.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're definitely afraid of them, whatever, however you were raised. But they have less lethal firearm pepper balls and stuff that are getting pretty common on the market now.
Yes, sir. In my opinion, I know everybody's got a different opinion on it, but that could get you killed, because if you have less lethal to protect yourself, and that guy's got a gun, he just thinks that you pulled a gun on him. Legally, he could shoot you, even though he's the one that you're trying to protect yourself from him. It gets into a mixed bag, but you don't. Even if you carry deadly force, you don't have to carry it unless you absolutely need it. Right. So, and if somebody's trying to take me or my son or your son even or your grandson or whoever, I would absolutely use it, because I see the effects after the fact, and you may never see them again. That might be your only chance to act. Who cares? Do whatever it takes. I mean, I love my son enough to go to prison. That says a lot, you know. I'll get an attorney after the fact. Yes, ma'am.
So the signs that are on the road, the blue ones that say call star 77, is that like if you're a girl driving at night, you feel like there's something sketch going on, you know, somebody's following or something, is star 77 where you go, or should you do 911? Like, what's the best way to get up to y'all as fast as possible?
The best way is 911. And I say that because the state goes back and forth with, well, this year we're going to have the Star HP, and then we're cutting the funding for that. It's costing more than whatever. When you call that number, that comes to our communication center in Raleigh, and they don't have your location. It does not triangulate. When you call 911, even if you don't have signal on a phone, and you call 911, like you don't have service, like say you haven't paid your bill or whatever, but your phone's charged up. You turn it on, you dial 911, you can make a 911 call, and it triangulates your position down to like 6 feet. And if you're moving longitude, latitude, as we're talking to you. So in any situation, I would call 911, because if you've got something going on like that, the first thing that, if you called our comm center, they're going to say, okay, well, where are you at? And they're going to talk all calm while you're freaking out. Okay, tell me your name. Where are you at? It's like,
there are
I
ones
don't
that
know.
do freak out.
I'm somewhere in freaking Washington County. I don't know. There's no signs. It's dark. All I know is this guy's behind me and riding my bumper. I feel scared. They're going to it's going to be on you to figure out where you're at. But if you call 911, they will automatically know where you're at, because as soon as you call, boom, it triangulates. They can see exactly where you're at. And we're trying to integrate all of our CAD programs, because, you know, we're state funded. So we get state money, and that's usually more than what a county would get to have a CAD system. So they don't have the money that we have to have like the latest and greatest technology for our CAD, to where I can see where all the troopers are, and they can see where I'm at. But not all counties are up to speed on that. But I think the ultimate goal is to integrate that to where if you call 911, it goes to the nearest 911 call center. And then hopefully that will integrate to us, so where they can patch it in and say, hey, we got this lady who's on 64 in Washington County in your area, and she's being followed by somebody. And then we can actually talk to you directly, say, hey, don't stop, keep going, we're getting up on him. You know, and as soon as we initiate the traffic stop, keep going. Yeah. Yeah, there's some weird creeps in the world, for sure. But I would call 911 because it'll give your location. That's the biggest difference.
So, in your introduction, you said that the incident that we had here is now an unusual thing to happen?
Not really.
Okay.
The method.
Like them pulling up and trying to lure kids.
I'm sorry?
They're talking about the van with the
Yeah.
potato chips. Yeah.
So the van, the kitty snatching tactic, that's kind of an old school tactic that they use. Snacks or sweets or something, and children try to draw the children in, and then as soon as they found one that they really liked, they would grab them, close the door, and go. And a lot of times they wouldn't have a tag on it, because then how are you going to find it? There's a million white vans in the world, you know? They try to be discreet about it. That's kind of an old tactic that you don't really see a whole bunch of anymore, because it's a lot easier for them to go online. You can be a different person on the computer than you actually are, and it's a whole lot easier just to go online and find kids that want a lot of attention. That's a big thing. So kids, whenever they're seeking a lot of attention online, that tells these predators they're not getting it at home. That's my chance. All I got to do is make contact with them, show them a little bit of love, let them think I care about them. I got them. So the kitty snatcher tactic is kind of old school. You don't see that much. That's pretty bold. They got to be brave enough to get caught. Whereas behind a computer, they can say, "Well, that wasn't me. I didn't do that."
Just to give a little insight, you weren't here yet, but about 2, maybe 3 years ago now, there was a white van with a blue door that decided to stop in a neighborhood in Grandy, part of North Carolina, so right here in Currituck County. He knows the kids stay there by themselves on the weekend because mommy and daddy was working. Decides to kick the door in. Luckily, the kids were smart enough to run out the back door when they realized that's not usual, and then called 911. That van immediately left and everything. So it's while it is uncommon, like you were saying, there are incidences. So it just, again, comes back to that whole stay vigilant, know who your kids are hanging out with. What routine can be your enemy. All right, I know I have a routine. Everyone here has a routine. But sometimes breaking that routine breaks the cycle of someone watching you and being able to predict exactly what you're going to do on what day and what time. Just put that out there.
These are all really good questions. I love it.
Are you aware that now that Messenger is on your phone, now they have a kids Messenger?
Yep.
Are you aware of that? Have you heard anything about that? And my grandkids are wanting to get on that, and have you heard anything whether it's safe or not? Probably not.
Yeah. She said there's messengers for adults, and now there's special messaging apps that children are using. Those are dangerous. Basically, whenever we do a search on a cell phone, whenever we do the data dump, we're looking for certain applications. Discord, Kicks, Roblox. There's certain things that the predators are really heavily concentrated on, and I don't know all of them. I just know there's enough of them to where they can hide conversations, and a lot of the conversations will delete and things like that. And then we have to get a search warrant for the server because nothing's ever deleted. It's stored somewhere, but that makes it harder to get that information. If my child ever had an app on a tablet or something like that, I would want it mirrored on my phone so that way I can see, okay, what are these conversations? How are these conversations going? He's not to that age, but eventually I'm going to have to give him more freedom and stuff like that down the road. But I would have it to where some of these apps are for parents and their children to where they can't be on past a certain many minutes or hours a day or past a certain time at night, and then it'll automatically mirror that conversation to your phone. So you can basically sit and watch what they're talking about and see how that conversation's going. But you don't know who's on the other end of it. That's the problem.
And a lot of them you have to approve
Mm-hmm.
who that is. So
Right,
you don't have
Mm-hmm.
like just those people, or like these 5 friends, this is it. But I have access and can see and like have to, monitor all of that. It's just to be
Allows them to have their freedom and communicate and, I don't know, whatever kids talk about. But it gives the parents a little bit of security knowing that it can only go so far, I try to get my boy out and play outside as much as possible. So it builds a different kind of bond to me than all of that. Yes, sir.
Dash cams, do they help you?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they do.
I love dash cams.
You can talk about it.
Oh, I love dash cams. If you have a dash cam and I'm on a wreck scene, please let me see the video, because it helps me a heck of a lot more than he said, she said, or whatnot. Because if it's one of those scenarios, I cannot help you on that rep report. But if you have a dash cam saying, yeah, this person ran into me, and you show me the video, heck yeah, let's go. That helps me out a lot.
So you recommend everybody have one?
Absolutely. If your car can have that technology or install that technology, go for it. If I had the ability to have a dash cam in my cars, absolutely. But dash cams is your greatest component as far as any type of driving. A lot of motorcycles now have it. That I know about that are on the helmets. But yeah, the dash cams are a great component. I mean, you got to see some really crazy dash cam videos of mine when I'm out patrolling and everything, doing some crazy U-turns. But yeah, by all means, go get a dash cam. That helps out a lot, because you can always rewind, record after the fact, and in this kind of scenarios and stuff like that, that gives us the ability to at least get a license plate or get a description of the person. Like, because here's the thing. In the times of like wrecks or snatching or active shooters or whatnot, you're not going to remember every single detail that happened. You even may misremember details. So like, I'm wearing a gray shirt with a black tie, but you may remember me as I'm wearing a black shirt with a gray tie, which doesn't quite look with this uniform. But if someone has a dash cam video or any kind of video of that scenario, and then they actually see what I'm actually wearing, that helps us a lot more to track the person down. Something that I have learned, at least with my tenure and my dad, is you can always look at someone's shoes. Or trying to do something crazy. They can strip down to their underwear and still wear their shoes. They might be psychopaths at that point, but they won't get rid of their shoes because no one really walks barefoot anymore. So just keep that in mind if you're trying to be vigilant or something like that. Look at their shoes and then work your way up. That's just my field of thought.
Cameras can be a double-edged sword too. I just saw late last night there was a guy charged in Wake County for felony secret peeping, and that is actually a sex offense, depending on where that camera's at. But you don't have to install a camera in like a locker room or a bathroom anymore. There's enough cameras in the world where these people are smart enough to hack into it. All they got to do is have the right IP address, and there's software that'll run IP addresses till they find it, and then they can have access to a camera that's watching you somehow, and it could be in a sensitive area or whatever. But they're double-edged swords. But you might not need it for yourself, but you might witness something while you're out driving, and that camera would capture it. It's a good idea. They're cheap. I put one in my truck, it's like $25. It's cheap. And it'll record for like 2 days before it starts re-recording over top of the footage.
Get the camera that faces forward and backward.
I want one facing backwards too, but mine was just forwards. But you can get them all different ways. You can have them all the way around the car. Teslas, they have cameras all around, and we've used those in not only wrecks, but like some other sensitive situations.
Does anyone else have any questions?
How can we get the PowerPoint?
What was the question?
How can I get the PowerPoint? You want to just leave?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We can get it to you. We put it on a thumb drive back there, and
yeah, just don't steal my DWI videos.
all of that, like I said, all of that information, I spent hours and hours reading and finding it, but it's all public information. Nothing in there is like official use only or nothing like that. So, and you can go back and fact check me, and you can rewatch the stuff, and you can see there's an abundance of this information out there. A lot of it's the same thing, but Department of Homeland Security, NC Stop Human Trafficking, North Carolina Human Trafficking Commission, the North Carolina Administrative Office of the Courts. There's a whole bunch of stuff on there to sift through, but I try to keep it PG-13 and kind of just the nuts and bolts of if you see it in your neighborhood, or maybe if you've got a new family that comes in the church and you start seeing these weird marks on the kids, or they don't really seem to jive very well, it just don't seem like it's an actual family or something. Maybe ask some questions, or just be observant for a little bit until you get to a point where you know something's not right, and then you make a phone call. I think it's important, especially having that happen here at your church already. These guys may think that this is a soft spot. You just need to harden it up a little bit. But I'll give you everything I made.
Let's give
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to ask you guys if you'd stand with us, and we're going to close out in prayer.
Yes, sir.
Lord, we thank you for this day that you've made. We thank you for opportunities to be, Lord, to be aware, to be informed, to be the best that we can be as parents. And I can't help but think of seeing something and saying something. That's what resonates within my heart and my mind. And Lord, that's for good things too, Lord. We need to promote what you're doing, and also being aware of what the enemy's doing in our area. That we would not be ignorant, that we would not only be aware, but we would be active. There's some people here, Lord, I believe, that would want to be engaged in some capacity in this whole issue, Lord. And certainly all of us would be praying, but Lord, there's some hands and feet that can take place as well. Lord, we do pray for a hedge of protection around our patrolmen, and we thank you for them, Lord. We thank you for their commitment, their, Lord, service to the community, really serving you, as the passage said. Lord, whatever we do, we want to do as unto you, Lord. We thank you for our children, Lord. And there should be a holy indignation within us, Lord, that we're not going to be indifferent. We're not going to just be to ourselves, Lord. And that's what you would have us to do, Lord. And I thank you for that. And I thank you for this time well spent. Lord, keep these kind of things on the front burner of our minds, Lord, as we go forward from this day. And we love you.